Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Tonight we got a great show for you. We're going to be talking about heroes of long ago. You know, they got heroes and heroes and heroes and heroes. But where did they all come from? Where did the real legends come from? What did the old people do from way back in the day? Did they have heroes of their own? Let's check out some of the myths and legends that, I got this cool new book. It's called Complete Idiot's Guide to Mythology. So we're going to check it out and learn some stuff tonight. It's going to be a little break from hardcore magic, hard learning stuff. You're going to sit back and ease your mind, and maybe we'll learn a thing or two about the world we live in. Of course, we have heroes nowadays in our in the comics that come to life on the big screen, like Superman or Iron Man or the Avengers or whoever you like in Thor. Who are these guys? Why are they so popular? And let's check that out today. Today we're gonna look at Perseus, and Perseus, he was quite the hero out there too. Oh, I'm trying to find this. Okay, but anyway, Perseus was this hero, and why is he this hero? He was this hero because he did away with Medusa. That's what I know. Maybe you know more about him, but for right now, that's what I could remember. He was the one who killed off Medusa, and it could be told in multiple ways. Just like if he was real. Think of yourself sitting around a campfire, back, 1,000 years ago, talking about Perseus and his heroic deeds and what he did and how things were going. But anyway, so hero's birth. It says the slaying of Medusa, the rescue of Andromeda, how Perseus saved his mother, the accidental killing of his grandfather. So even heroes have their downfalls. It says here, could there be a hero more virtuous than Perseus? A model of chivalry. He rescues his future bride, Andromeda, from a monster, and his mother from the Leprechauns, and a powerful king, a brave and resourceful adventurer. He ranks among the greatest monster slayers of classical mythology. A paragon of fidelity, one of the rarest virtues seen in Greek and Roman myths. Perseus remained true to Andromeda throughout their marriage. A beloved king, he not only rules Tyrannus for many years, but founded the neighboring city of Massilia and fortified Medela as well. Little wonder then that Homer called Perseus the most renowned of all men. See, it gave you something to look up to. Can you imagine your father or mother saying, grow up and be more like Perseus? Gods of all, Perseus' conception, birth, and youth. Our hero always has to have an immaculate conception or a mysterious birth coming from somewhere. So let's find out what this is, But as we go on, I want to thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you for joining me tonight on this journey that we're taking. So thank you for being here, and let's get on with it. Against all odds, Perseus' conception, the birth in his youth. So as many classical myths do, the story of Perseus actually begins 2 generations earlier. His grandfather, Arceus, king of Argos, had a twin brother named Protheus. Talk about sibling rivalry. Archelaus and Protheus were enemies even before their birth. Yeah, go figure. While still inside their mother's womb, the 2 brothers began their lifelong quarreling. The 2 brothers were supposed to grow up to rule Argos, a city in southern Greece, together. But as soon as they reached manhood, Arceus and Protheus fought for the throne of Argos. Arceus emerged victorious and forced his brother into exile. Perseus then became king of Tyrannus, a neighboring city of Argelios. A region surrounded Argos. The mighty fortification of the city were so impenetrable, and the blocks of stone so compromised, the wall was so large that the construction had to be attributed to the Cyclops, one-eyed giant who renowned for stone masons rather than to mere men. See, and when they're telling these stories, remember, the stones were so big, they were so heavy that any mortal man could not bear to, put them together. And, the city was so large, the walls were so big, they were bigger than any ever built before. And, they have to elaborate on these things so it makes the person go, "Wow, what amazing! How amazing are the walls? And they were built by a Cyclops, giant man with one big eye. Oh my gosh, it'd make you sit on the edge of your seat." Of course, they didn't have TV and video and graphics and all these other things, CGI or nothing. You had to use your imagination, and the words had to be colorful. The golden shower. After many years of marriage to Agalape, Arceus had but one child, a daughter named Diane. Wanting a son to inherit his kingdom, Arceus consulted an oracle. Now, what's an oracle? An oracle is like a fortune teller, a witch, a knower of things. Somebody who would probably read the cards or the tea leaves or something like that. And got some, so he got some nothing but bad news. He learned that not only would he have no sons, but his sole male heir, his daughter's son, would kill him. That's got to be some news. Arceus desperately tried to prevent this prophecy from coming true. He locked his daughter up in an underground chamber, cast of bronze. That's some punishment. What did I do, Daddy? What did I do? And you notice they always have to have it wasn't just a cell. It had to be extraordinary cell, like cast of bronze, a bronze cell, almost impenetrable. Despite this preventative measures, Diane conceived a child, though some rumors held that her exiled Perseus had stolen into his niece's cell and impregnated her. Diane always insisted that Zeus had fathered the child. The god appeared before her in the form of a shower of gold and poured through the roof of her chamber and fell into her lap. Thus Diane, despite her imprisonment, gave birth to a child, and whom she called Perseus. And of course, I got some pictures for you. See, back in the day, they had things. So we're gonna look at this. Here's they had the drawings of the people, Perseus slaying Medusa. Here's another one. They drew it on, not only. So, like I said, these were things that they did. Anyway, okay, let's get on with this. Some storytellers insist that Arceus, alerted by the baby's cry, discovered his grandson almost immediately after birth. Others maintain that the mother and the child spent more than a year imprisoned together until Arceus heard the toddler playing in the underground chamber. In any case, Arceus acted quickly upon the discovery. He placed both Diane and Perseus in a large wooden chest and set it adrift in the Aegean Sea, consigning his daughter and his grandson to death. Well, he wasn't nice. He didn't. All of this to avoid death. Tell you, how funny. A fine kettle of fish. Fortunately, Diane and Perseus, Zeus guided the chest across the sea to an island of Sirius. The island had its own pair of brothers, though not so hostile toward each other, of Arceus and Protheus. These brothers were by no means close. Polydictates, king of the Perseus, enjoyed royal privileges, while Dictys lived his life of a poor fisherman. Dictys was out fishing one day when he spied the chest floating nearby and caught it in his net. After rescuing and releasing Diane and Perseus, kind Dictys took the two refugees into his home, claiming that they were distant kin. The claim turned out to be true, since both Dictys and Diane were descendants of Dionysus, a former king of Argos. Dictys cared for Diane and Perseus for many years until the boy was fully grown. Anyway, so see, there's always the god of Zeus or somebody guiding our hero. They guide the hero to where he needs to go, and then they care for him and watch over him and find somebody who will nurture him into adulthood so he may carry out his thing. Okay, something fishy going on. While mother and son were living in Dictys's home, King Polydictes fell in love with Diane. The king asked her to marry him. Diane rejected his offer. Polydictes might have taken her by force, but by the time Perseus had become a formidable young man, perhaps afraid of opposing Perseus, Polydictes pretended to accept Diane's rejection with good grace, yet he never stopped scheming to have her. Soon after Diane's rejection, Polydictes announced his intention to ask for her hand of Hippodamia. Hippodamia, yeah, that's the name, all right. A daughter of King Onimus of Pisa, a city. If I knew how to speak Greek, people, this would come out a lot better. City in southwestern Greece. Polydictes arranged for a banquet in which each invited guest must traditionally bring a present for the intended bride. Polydictes demanded that each of his subjects bring a horse as contribution. This demand left Perseus in quite a bind. Whether the ward of a poor fisherman or son of a slave, Perseus had no horses. In all likelihood, Polydictes hoped that Perseus would be shamed into fleeing the kingdom. Instead, Perseus offered what he must have seemed to Polydictes as an even better solution. The young man acknowledged that he had no horses, but rashly promised to bring the king anything else he desired, even the head of Medusa. And there you go, the head of Medusa. So this is why he went out and did it. I always wondered that. Polydictes, his evil intentions toward Diane were distinguished, eagerly accepting Perseus's offer, for he knew that no man had ever survived a meeting with the Gorgon, whose face turned men to stone. Only a face a mother could love. Medusa, yeah, who was Medusa? Why was she a Gorgon? Medusa was one of the three monstrous sisters called the Gorgons. Of the three, only Medusa could be killed. Her sisters, Euryale and Cephiano, were immortal. The hideous Gorgons had the following features: serpents for hair, penetrating eyes that turned anyone who looked upon them into stone, huge snake-like tongues, teeth as long and sharp as tusks of a wild boar, bodies covered with scales so hard that no weapon could pierce them, golden wings, claws forged of brass. See, our villain always has to be bigger, badder, and worse than anything else. So, a little help from my friends. Considering Medusa's frightening features, Perseus must have begun having second thoughts about this foolhardy promise almost immediately. Defeating the mighty Medusa seemed and impossible quest. To avoid the vigilant eyes of Medusa and her sisters, her slayer must approach the lair without being seen. To escape being turned into stone, the killer would have to slay her without looking at her face. Even if Perseus succeeded in killing Medusa, he would then need to flee with the incredible speed to avoid the swift pursuit of her golden winged sisters. Perseus soon discovered, however, that he would have help in completing his quest. Athena, who hated Medusa, appeared before him and told him exactly what to do. Athena first brought Perseus to the cave of Zephyrus, where some of the Nadleds, the nymphs, and spring brooks and lakes lived. These nymphs led Perseus virtually everything, or they lent him everything he would need to overcome the Gorgons. The winged saddled, which would allow him. They gave him winged sandals, which would allow him to approach and later escape the lair of the Gorgons with great speed, like Mercury's boots that had the little wings on them. The Cape of Darkness, or Cap of Hades, which makes its wearer invisible. The Cap of Hades. Okay, the Cap of Hades. Okay, the Cap of Darkness. Another one, a purse or pouch in which to carry his trophy, Medusa's head. Yeah, you got the head, and you don't want to turn yourself to stone by looking at it. Okay, let's see. And as they go on, so now he is traveling. Let's go to this one. Here he is. He shouldn't be looking at her, but see, he's got the boots on over here with the wings, the sandals with the wings, so he can travel fast. And this is Medusa. She's got wings, and she's getting ready to get her head chopped off. With this weapons assembled, Perseus traveled to the cave of the mountain where Atlas stood. In the cave lived the Gray Woman, sisters of Gorgons, the hair of the Grassi, 3 ancient witches who had just one eye and one tooth among them had been gray from birth, or they had been gray from birth. Perseus hid himself and waited until one of the sisters took out her eye and started to hand it to another. Since this was the only time when all the Greys were blind, Perseus surprised them and intercepted the eye. Holding the eye hostage, Perseus forced the crones to reveal the location of the Gorgon's lair. After getting the information he needed, Perseus tossed the eye into the Lake Trinios, and hurried towards the Gorgons. So he was terrible. He took the eye and said goodbye. That's my attempt at rhyming. And Medusa loses her head. Swiftly, invisibly, his sword in his belt and his bag slung over his shoulder, Perseus approached the lair of the Gorgons. He found the lair at the end of the earth, in the land where neither the sun nor the moon ever shone. As he approached and entered the Gorgon's lair, he passed dozens of stone figures, the petrified bodies of both beasts and humans who had foolishly wandered into the dark and desolate land and glimpsed upon one of the Gorgons. Perseus had painstakingly polished his bronze shield before approaching the Gorgon's lair. Now he used his shield as a mirror to spy on the Gorgons without looking directly at them. He waited near the entrance of their lair until he could see the Gorgons had fallen asleep. Using his mirrored shield to reflect Medusa's image and direct his attack, Perseus cut off her head with a single blow, and his mighty sword. He stuffed the head into the pouch and flew away on his winged feet. The Gorgons awoke and flew into their lair, shrieking for vengeance. Medusa's monstrous sisters could not see Perseus, though cloaked as he was by the cap of darkness, and soon gave up their attack. Homeward bound. See, our hero always seems to do the job. He wins the day and then narrowly escapes. Okay, now he's homeward bound for, well, you know what? Homeward bound, there's always got to be some kind of mislaid trip there, and then you get there and you get the celebration. So let's find out what happens. Homeward bound. With his trophy securely in hand, Perseus flew back towards Zephyrus on his winged sandals. Yet the journey back from their lair of the Gorgons was a long one. He would need to make several stops before he returned home. These layovers were by no means uneventful. As Perseus soon discovered, he had several more adventures in store for him before he reached Zephyrus, the mountain man, Atlas. According to Ovid alone, Perseus' first stop in the land of Hesperides, he announced himself as a son of Zeus and asked the Titans Atlas, who ruled the Hesperides, if he could rest there for a while. Yet Atlas recalled the prophecy of Titanius, Themis, who had warned him that a son of Zeus would one day steal the golden apples of Hesperides. So the Titan, who fiercely guarded these apples, insulted Perseus, denied his parentage, and rudely attempted to expel him from the land. Perseus could not hope to match the strength of Atlas, yet his cleverness far outshone that of the dim-witted Titan. Perseus knew that the head of Medusa, even after death, had not lost its power to turn anyone who looked upon it to stone. So before he left, Perseus offered to show Atlas what he had in his bag. Turning his own head away, Perseus lifted the head out of the bag and turned the Titan into a mountain, known afterwards as Mount Atlas. Our hero strikes again, and onward he goes. A damsel in distress, the rescue of Andromeda. As Perseus flew on winged sandals over the coast of Ethiopia on his way home, he saw the figure of a beautiful woman chained to a rock below. The radiance of this figure stunned him so that at first Perseus, though her carved of marble, but when he descended for a better look, he saw that this maiden was crying. At first the girl seemed frightened of Perseus and reluctant to speak about her predicament. But, using gentle persuasion, Perseus overcame the virginal beauty's shyness, and she shared with him her tragic tale. Her name was Andromeda, the daughter of Cepheus, depending on the source of the king of either Ethiopia or Joppa, a city on the Levanten coast and Cassiopeia. Her mother had angered Poseidon by boasting that she was more beautiful than the Nereids, the sea nymphs who served as the sea god's attendants. To punish Cassiopeia valiantly, Poseidon had flooded the kingdom and sent a sea monster to ravage Ethiopia. Following the advice of the oracle, King Cepheus had chained the naked Andromeda to a rock cliff as a sacrificial offering to appease Poseidon and save his kingdom. Yeah, that's the thing. You got to save the damsel in distress, don't you? As he listened to her tale, Perseus fell in love with Andromeda. She begged him to save her from being devoured by the sea monster and take her away from that spot as a wife or a slave. Perseus promised he would, but first convinced Cepheus to promise to reward him with Andromeda's hand in marriage and a kingdom if he rescued her. Welcoming the opportunity to save both his kingdom and his daughter, the king eagerly accepted Perseus' demands. When the sea monster surfaced, Perseus drove on top of the beast and, following a raging battle and that stained the seas red with blood, killed it, according to the people of Joppa. The spring where Perseus washed his hands after the battle ran red from that moment onward. Perseus then freed Andromeda from her chains and brought the girl to her parents. Having saved the daughter, Perseus now demanded that Zephyrus honor his promises. See, as you go, that's how it works. You kill the dragon, you save the girl, you win the kingdom and the girl's hand. That's how a hero's story is always made. Marrying kind. Unfortunately, Andromeda had already been promised to Cepheus' brother, Phineus, called a detail that Cepheus had neglected to mention in his eagerness to see his daughter rescued. So, in other words, he promised something that he already promised somebody else. And he says, "Oh, sorry, you did your work. Sorry, buddy. You're out of here." Those Phineus had not lifted a hand to save his bride, he still refused to step aside for his savior. Cepheus, however, kept his promise to Perseus. With an army behind him, Phineus interrupted the wedding of Perseus and Andromeda to assist his prior claim on her. Though greatly outnumbered, Perseus emerged victorious from the battle for Andromeda's hand by using Medusa's head to turn his rival and all of Phineus's allies to stone. Wow, what an ingenious plan. Couldn't have thought of that one myself. Phineus out of the way, Perseus married Andromeda, and unlike most of the gods and heroes of classical mythology, remained faithful to her throughout his life. The couple remained with her parents for almost a year after their marriage, Andromeda giving birth to her first son, Perseus. When Perseus finally resumed his journey back to Zephyrus, he and Andromeda left the infant Perseus with his grandparents. Since his grandfather Zephyrus had no other heirs, Perseus would inherit his kingdom. The boy's descendants would travel east and rule Persia, the land that is named after Perseus. Bet you all didn't know that one now, did you? Let's go on. Let's finish this up. Family reunion. When Perseus returned to the island of Zephyrus, he found his mother taking refuge at an altar of the gods. As soon as Perseus had set out on his quest, the lustful king Perseus had attempted to ravish Diane. The king's brother Dictys had thwarted Polydictys and led Diane to the altar, sacred ground where the king dared not violate her. Upon hearing Polydictys' treachery, Perseus headed straight for the palace. Bursting in upon the banquet, he surprised the king, who had by no doubt presumed that Perseus was dead. Perseus announced that he had brought the promised gift for the intended bride of Polydictys. The king scoffed the claim, challenging Perseus' word and his honor. The young hero needed no further provocation. Averting his own eyes, he held up the severed head of Medusa, which instantly turned Polydictys and his guests into stone. Having rescued his mother, Perseus rewarded Dictys for his loyalty and protection by giving him the throne vacated by Polydictys. He then returned his borrowed weapons to Hermes. Haven't heard that one before. Yeah, Hermes, who carried them back to the naiads, the nymphs and stuff. To show his gratitude to Athena, Perseus mounted his trophy, the head of Medusa, on the shield of the goddess. The head surrounded by snakes, heads on the center of her Aegeus, became Athena's most distinctive emblem. His heroic quest completed, Perseus set out for Argos with Andromeda and Diane. There, in the kingdom of his birth, he hoped to make peace with his grandfather, Archelaus. The welcome. Now we finish up the story. This is where our hero does it again. The exploits of his grandson Perseus had not gone unnoticed by Archelaus. Fearing that his daughter and her famed son would soon return to Argos and fulfill the prophecy. Now remember, he's worried he's going to get killed. He had desperately tried to avoid. Arceus fled to Laceria, a kingdom of Thessaly. But Perseus, who apparently harbored no vengeance for his grandfather, despite Arceus's cruelty so many years before, followed the old man to Laceria. Perseus had not yet found his grandfather when he learned that the father of the king of Laceria had died. While attending a funeral games held in the honor of the king's father, Perseus impulsively decided to join the discus throw competition. Unfortunately, a discus thrown by Perseus got away from him. It accidentally struck and killed one of the spectators, his grandfather, Arceus. The prophecy had come true. Perseus had indeed caused his grandfather's death. Wow, what a turn of events. He didn't even try. Oh, yeah, so anyway, okay, well, we go to this one. Yeah. Here's our hero. Okay, with the death of Arceus, Perseus inherited the throne of Argos. Yet he felt so ashamed to have won the throne by accidentally killing his own grandfather that Perseus vowed never to return to Argos. Instead, he traded kingdoms, Argos for Tyrannus, with Megaphenius, the only son of Arceus' twin brother Prometheus. Perseus served as king of Tyrannus for many years thereafter. While ruling Tyrannus, he established the city of Mycenae, though some say he merely forfeited it. A forfeited Medelia, he remained faithful to Andromeda, who bore him 6 more children. One of the greatest heroes of Argos, Perseus, was worshipped after his death in both Athens and Cepharius. Athenia herself honored Perseus and Andromeda by making constellations in both their names after they died. But anyway, that is how Perseus came to be. So I hope you enjoyed that little tidbit on Perseus. Kind of our heroes in the past. I hope you enjoyed that. Perseus was quite the hero, slaying Medusa. We've all heard of Medusa. Turning people to stone and so forth and so on. And somewhere Pegasus is in there, but I don't know where. But that is the story by what I read, and you can go find out. I'm sure there's about 50 versions of it, probably some TV shows on it, maybe even some movies. So figure it out for yourself. But thank you all for coming tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you for stopping in and hearing a good story. Maybe you learned something. Maybe something you knew, maybe something you didn't know. But remember, it's always good to learn something new or even get refreshed on something old. So with that, remember, go out and do something for somebody nice. Just smile at them, wave at them, say, hey, how you doing? Remember, all things are good, and to be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love y'all. Peace, everybody.